So for those of you just joining us, my name is Elena Capra. I'm a certified master kitchen and bath designer, and I'm also your host of the Next Stage here for our last and final day of KBIS today. So next up, we have the KBIS Disruptor Talk that was originally scheduled for yesterday, and our disruptor, Shelly Rosenberg, has gone through quite an ordeal to get here. She had snowstorms, canceled flights, scheduling conflicts, and she made it here today, and we are so happy to have her with us because this talk is going to be a very important talk. The KBIS Disruptor Series has been absolutely incredible this year. So people that are truly disrupting and forging their way through a complicated landscape with new ideas and actions. On Tuesday, the disruptor speaker from the technology track, serial entrepreneur Alexei Dubov of Mighty Buildings, encouraged the audiences to take chances in technology. And yesterday, sustainability visionary Lou Oliver talked about the future of sustainable communities. Now, Shelly Rosenberg, designer and educator, is here to explore the fascinating topic called Neurodiverse Universe. You're ignoring 96% of your clients. Let's learn a little bit about Shelly before she comes on stage to deliver her presentation. Designer and educator Shelly Rosenberg is a pioneer of inclusive design, a practice that exists at the intersection of mental health and neurodiversity. Her specialized adaptations prioritize cognitive health, addressing the growing reality of conditions like anxiety, depression, ADHD, and autism. In her 25 years of raising 3 children with disability and discovering her own, Shelly's ability to identify and address this unique population has grown exponentially. Shelly is now Colorado-based and offers therapeutic products, workshops, and global consultations offering innovative solutions for empowering lives. Shelly, welcome to the Next Stage.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I came all this way to tell you that you are not normal. Now you know. You are not normal, and neither am I, because the word normal is a social construct that we have created as a society, and normal doesn't exist. It's my favorite myth, and even if you think you have the typical brain type, you've bound to have a flaw or two, right? Perfection is just not part of biodiversity. It really is a social construct that we have given power to, and the exciting thing about that is that we can take that power back. So this is just a mind shift, really, when we talk about neurodiversity, just allowing you to consider the fact that there's no superior way to be or to think. So brains are like fingerprints. There's no 2 brains that are just alike. Even identical twins have different brain types. And neurodiversity is really such an important part of biodiversity. We need this in our world. We need this in our lives. Neurodiversity has always existed. So many people ask me, what is it with all this autism and all this neurodiversity and ADHD? We didn't used to have that. We have always had it. It's just been hidden or marginalized, but it doesn't mean that it's a small group. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It's just now finally becoming a topic of conversation, and I feel it's very important for us in this industry especially to be discussing it. And keep in mind too that neurodiversity can be innate. It can be something that you're born with. It can also be acquired, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, about people that have strokes or brain injuries or other things like dementia or Alzheimer's that aging will come into play, so that neurodiversity really spans such a large spectrum. And a lot of reasons why I think neurodiversity is misunderstood is because so much of being neurodivergent is invisible. So this is my world, this is my family, this is my why, this is why I'm here today. And I think if you took this picture out onto the streets of Las Vegas and asked, What do you think about this family? Everyone say, it looks like a normal family, right? There's that word again, normal, right? But I know for a fact that you are not clear about the clients that you're working with because you cannot tell that there is ADHD, dyslexia, sensory processing, all of these different diagnoses in this family. You might be able to tell that my little boy, Ronan, has Down syndrome. Possibly you could see that. But really what's so interesting about this is 96% of all disabilities are invisible. So if you think you don't work with the disabled, you're not correct. You do. You're already working with people that are neurodivergent and that have disability. People often also think that neurodiversity is just about autism. So let's talk about autism for a minute. So 20% of our entire population is neurodiverse, and only 2% of that 20 is autism. Okay, so autism is a part of neurodiversity, but it is not the whole picture. There's so much more to cognitive disability and challenge than you might believe. So when you look at the autism spectrum disorder, ASD, that 2% is still greater than pediatric cancer, pediatric diabetes, and pediatric AIDS all combined. It's a large number. If you're working with families with children, you're going to be working with someone that is neurodiverse. And also when we talk about boomers, so interesting. We have 1 in 36 kids now, but boomers are 7 million now, 13 million by 2050, and the occurrence of dementia or Alzheimer's, which overlaps with this neurodivergent diagnosis, will be 1 in 2. So we're talking 50-50. Neurodiversity just cannot be avoided. It's everywhere. It's a part of who we are as a society. So if you look around, I can guarantee that at least 1 in 5 of you is neurodiverse. And because I know my industry and love my industry, we're creatives. So probably it's like 3 in 5 in this group because we are good at what we do because we think out of the box, because we have a different brain type, because we can come up with exponential ideas in a very short amount of time. We have a lot of power in that way. We need innovation. We need new ways of thinking. Why? Because this planet is growing faster and developing faster than we can keep up with, right? And we need people like Elon Musk who's going to think out of the box. Sometimes I wonder, why are we working on going to all these other planets and inhabiting other planets when we've got so much here on this planet Earth to do? But honestly, we're looking in the weeds. Somebody has to be looking at the stars, right? All right, now that you know a little bit about what neurodiversity is, I want to tell you what it isn't, because there's so many misconceptions, and I'm very passionate about this. Like I said before, neurodiversity is not just autism. That's only 2%. Neurodiversity can be really big things like Tourette's or severe autism that you might even be able to notice. But it also can be really small things like dyslexia, which so many incredibly talented household names have. You've heard about the way that we treat plants, right? If you have a potted plant or a flower and it's not doing well, you don't blame the flower, you change the environment, right? So this is something that we really need to think about. It's not a disease to be cured. This is not also a group to pity. I think the reason people feel sad when they consider disability is because we assume that to be disabled is inherently to be suffering, but really it's not the disability that makes us suffer. What's a struggle is when you have a disability, whether it's physical or cognitive, and you're in a community or an environment that is mismatched for you and you don't feel like you fit in, you don't have a place, you feel marginalized, that's where the suffering happens. And our industry has control over that. All right, I really want to tell you about the economic impact of this particular demographic, especially because I do not want you to think that I'm asking you to do charity. I'm not trying to talk about philanthropy. This is not like, oh, this is a team building thing, and maybe once a year we'll go and help this demographic. This is not a them and an us, this is a we. These are our children, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, our coworkers. So the disabled population, and this number is coming from physical disability, but neurodivergent overlaps with physical disability as well. They've got $645 billion in discretionary income to spend. And if they believed that you had answers to their problems, they're going to spend that money with you. And when you combine their spending power with their friends and with their family and their advocates, we've got $8 trillion of spending power. I would love to be able to walk through KBIS next year and see more people talking about how we can serve the disabled, whether it's physically or cognitively, in all kinds of new ways. It's starting to happen. I'm seeing it a little bit. I'd love to see more of it. So these people are not a burden to us. They have money to spend, and we absolutely can take advantage of that. So this is one of my favorite quotes. I think it's so powerful. Architects and designers have a greater ability to improve public health than medical practitioners. Have you ever considered yourself more powerful than a doctor? Well, we're not in certain ways, but we are in a lot of ways, because how many times do you see your doctor per year? 2 or 3 times, and it's usually because you are treating something that you already have. We're in our environments, in our homes, in our offices, in our schools, 24/7, right? And so if that's the case, and we are the arbiters of those builds, then we have the power to manipulate in a good way or a bad way how people feel in those environments, whether they're supported, whether their health gets better, whether their wellness is improved or not. All right, so I want you to know that there are benefits to your business. Again, this is not some kind of a charity. We all want to make money. We all have fabulous trips. We all want to gamble in Vegas and have fun. So there are some important key points that I want you to think about. The riches are in the niches. We've all heard that before. There is so much to this. I was a designer. I've been a designer for about 25 years, and the longer that I did design, while raising 3 kids with all kinds of different issues, the more I realized that there was like this clash with what I was doing. But I was really afraid to kind of niche down into design for disability, because I thought it would really limit me. I probably, like you, thought it's a really tiny market, there's just no money to be made, everybody's on welfare, or I'm going to be working with nonprofits only, but that's not been the case. The more you know, the more you can charge. And so niching really is the way to gain credibility, to strengthen your career, and to pull more funds in. Increase value in your profession and your projects. What about designing from cradle to grave? For any age, any stage. It's really about universal design, but we're adding even another layer to that. It's more inclusive. It's more sensorially focused. We look through the lens of our own human senses and try to figure out what can we do better with the lighting, what can we do better with the air quality, the water quality. And I do workshops on how to take the 5 human senses plus 3 additional and to really use that as a system to go in and manipulate environments to really make things better, as all the big companies have been doing forever. Does anybody know that Starbucks has their own signature scent that they pump into their stores worldwide? So you're not really smelling the fresh brewed coffee of that morning. You're smelling a scent that will make you feel at home and comfortable, whether you're in Starbucks in Vegas or in China. I think that's fascinating. So much of the corporate culture has been using our subconscious and our senses to really manipulate us to deepen, to broaden their better line, to do better business. And I think we can now use that in our own designs to be able to pump people up and increase health and wellness. And also, so you're future-proofing homes. Remodeling is expensive. Cradle to grave, promotion of ESG and DEI initiatives, so many different corporations now and groups, larger firms, are having to prove tax-wise that they are being more inclusive, and this is just another way to do that. Consider what you're building. You don't have to own your own firm to build a legacy. Everyone has a legacy to build and to leave on this planet after you go. I really want to invite you to assume the power that design has to heal, because it is real. And think about why you got into this to begin with. Deepen your why, recommit to design, understand that there's so many deeper levels to what we do and how important it is for the global development of better health and wellness. And I also truly believe there's an ethical responsibility. I mean, when you design inclusively, you're tapping into the pulse points of empathy, right, and visibility. And that's what humans want. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We just want to live our lives, right? We want environments where we can easily enjoy our relationships and learn to thrive, be able to thrive in our lives without constantly having obstacles and challenges. So, I think the next steps, if you're interested in this, is really to talk to your colleagues, talk to your employees, let them know it's a safe space. If you have challenges that you've never divulged, let people know, because we all do. And I think getting really honest about that is a nice way to start the conversation. Invest in knowledge. This is not something that you have to go get a certification in. You don't have to go back to school or get a degree. There's so much information on neuroscience, neuroaesthetics, neurodiversity, the way the brain perceives art, environment, spaces, balance scale, all of those things. There's so much information out there, and I have a wonderful resource list I'd love to share with you. And you can really build on people before you. Most of the best white papers, scientific, I kind of nerd out on the science of it. Most of that science I get from people that I just meet on LinkedIn. There are so many people out there talking about this. It seems like much more in Europe. Somehow they seem to be ahead of us in this. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. If it's interesting to you, if you have any kind of personal experience with someone in your family that has anywhere from dyslexia to Tourette's, anything that's different, maybe dive into that and start looking into it. See if it creates a spark and does something new for your business. And then I also think that, paying it forward is a really wonderful place to be. We're all very successful. We're all here at our leisure learning and enjoying each other. And if for some reason this doesn't seem like it pertains to you and you're not that interested, that's okay. You can still always pay it forward by reaching out, maybe like I said, with your team on a weekend. Find a local organization that could really use your help. So I'm here. I'm super passionate about this. I mean, this is my love. It's what I believe in. It's what I want the interior, design, architecture, like builders, city planners, developers, we all need to understand how much power we have to make this world better, to heal the world, to make environments so inclusive. Because you're not just doing it for some group, you're doing it for you, for yourselves, for your children, for your grandchildren, for your great-grandchildren. This world could be such a better place, and I think a lot of that starts with how we build the spaces that we experience our lives in. So I would love to do presentations with you all, remote consults, teach you whatever you need to know. If you have a client that needs something special, it's easy for me to give you all the information you need, let you go and be the hero and solve those problems for that client. And I also have some free resources for you. So this is not the last slide, but if you would fill out a couple questions for me, I will send you my little black book of everything on neurodiversity, biophilia, all the different things that I study and love so that you don't have to go out and do that for yourself. And I would love to do that for you, but what I really want you to do, please step up and claim the power that you have as a creative visionary, as a global leader, as a healer. I really believe this industry is magical. That's why I'm a part of it. I love all of you, and I just really thank you for your time here. I want you to give yourselves a hand for being in one of the best industries that I can think of in the world today. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, I think I've got some time to answer.
Can you give some examples on how you would design for a client who experiences anxiety and depression? Like, what kind of changes would you make in your design process and concept?
Okay, so one thing you have to do is get more information, right? Because what I'm finding out is some people are overstimulated and need sensory stimulus removed, and some people might need sensory stimulus added. So trying to kind of get a little bit more of a baseline on what that person needs, what feels good to them, what doesn't feel good, and that's where I go back to that sensory system. If that question feels really big and hard to understand, you just go, okay, let's think about sight. Let's go through our 5 senses. What about the lighting is aggravating to this person? Is there something we can do to remove light, to lower light, to change the temperature? Or is there something we need to add? Is it really dark and gloomy in the home, and do we need to get light bulbs from Amazon that are the daylight, true light bulbs? Or if we're having trouble sleeping, do we need to change our lighting to a warmer color to mimic sunset, like to have those orange or red or pink light bulbs in the lamp, so that we can give our brain, that autonomic nervous system, that hint that sunset is happening and then it's time to start making melatonin and going to sleep. So there's just different ways that you can do it, but I'd love to talk to you about it more anytime.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I just got nervous.
That's okay. I'm kind of nervous still. I'm kind of glad this is almost over.
I know, right? I was like so excited for yesterday, and then they said you were moving
Oh,
today.
thank you
and
for
like,
coming.
oh,
I got
stay.
snowed in. I'm from Colorado, and
Yeah.
all my flights were canceled, but
I heard that it's going around. What was I gonna ask you? Sorry.
that's okay.
What would you suggest for someone? I just finished interior design. It's been a lifelong dream of mine since I was 2.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm starting with architecture now as well.
Okay.
So starting out for somebody who was recently found out that they have Asperger's.
Okay.
I was diagnosed OCD, ADHD since I was a kid. Always thought something was wrong with me. Then I found out there's nothing wrong with me. I just needed to live in my world and be creative.
So glad you did that for yourself. That's great self-advocation.
Yeah, I heard your name a long time ago, and I didn't click until I saw you
Okay.
on the list. But what would you suggest for someone like me who's a little bit intimidated by all of this stuff and all the people and the successful people thinking, man, I should have done this 20 years ago when I started?
Well, I'm in my 50s. I still have an 11-year-old at home, so I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes I feel like I'm like starting and stopping and starting and stopping. I think there is a place for everybody. Not everybody's going to be up on stage, even though I'm ADHD and have some other issues as well. I'm also an introvert. We were talking about this last night at dinner. Can you be up on stage and perform and also be an introvert? Absolutely. That's called acting. That's what I do. And so as soon as I get home, I'll get in bed and I'll stay there for about 2 weeks. But you know, I do a lot of research and introverted tasks in this area, and then I can distribute that information to people that have a bigger platform, right? So that I can scale this information, so there'll be a part for you, however you want to play that. Just start looking into what's interesting to you, and I think when you're working with clients, there's no better credibility than to look a client in the eye and say, I know exactly what you're going through because that's my diagnosis too. You've got them. You've got them for life. And if we're really going to be designing from cradle to grave, and you build that relationship of trust from the beginning, you've got a lifetime client. And you only need, how many of those do you need in a lifetime? 20 lifetime clients, and you've got a big career ahead of you. So you're going to be fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing? I
Nice
know
to
we've
see
crossed
you.
paths before.
This is a friend on social media that we're finally meeting first time.
Yes, and I was so excited to see you today. I am an occupational therapist, and my colleagues were here, occupational therapists. They could not make it today, so the presentation was fantastic, and I really appreciate this presentation and creating that awareness. So I love the quote that you presented. So I wanted to add and ask if you have worked with any healthcare providers and bring them to the table to help design the spaces and what that process was like for you.
I'm glad you brought that up because I cannot know everything. And there's a saying that if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Everybody's different. That's why they call it a spectrum. And so, yeah, you have to ask the client what it is they need. And if they can't, sometimes the parents are exhausted if I'm working with families and they can't tell me what the client needs, I'll say, let me talk to your PT, your physical therapist, your occupational therapist, right? Let me work with your team and get a better understanding of what this client in particular needs. And I will say too, when you serve a person in a family or a business with the highest needs, everybody wins, okay? So yes, I'm glad you brought that up because all the different therapeutic and medicinal type practices out there just help me inform what I do. All I do is take all that information and try to translate it through the lens of interior design. So I try to stay only in my wheelhouse, but absolutely, that's why we've been talking, because she's teaching me so much about what my clients are gonna need, and she's teaching me what to think about with my clients because I don't have that kind of background. So I'm so glad you're here. And thank you for that. It can really be a team effort. You don't have to know everything. I get clients all the time where I'm thinking, I've never worked with anybody with fibromyalgia or whatever. I have to go learn it. They want to put an elevator or some kind of special stair lift in. I've never done that. I have to go and research it. But that's why conferences like this are here and other designers are here. That's what this community is for, so we can ask. So don't let that keep you from working with this community because we're here to help each other.
Hi, so this is kind of a loaded question. I know we've been talking about neural diversity, and I feel like a lot of designers won't take that route to go fully into catering to this community in specific. Though I have worked with clients like that myself, and I know how hard it is to understand their story, understand their needs, and you know, especially when it's kids, like to get their parents to open up to the designers so we know how to like design for them. Now, what are like a few things that us as designers can incorporate into every single design so that we can better create spaces that can impact, you know, a person's life, you know, including the 5 senses like you've mentioned?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It is a tough conversation to have. Usually I start by self-disclosing something that I struggle with. You know, how are you doing, how are we gonna do the bedrooms? Does anybody have trouble sleeping in this household? You know, or, oh, well actually, you know, daughter number 2 is up and down all night, doesn't sleep, we're not sure what to do. That opens a door right there. You don't have to know if that's a diagnosis or not. You just know that that's an issue that they're having. And so again, bringing these conversations up can be hard, but self-disclosure helps first, sharing things, but also like you just said, when we look at the 5 senses and say, okay, we don't know what's going on with this family, we know because of the data, something's probably, there's some challenges in there, but we don't necessarily have to ferret them out right away. We can start looking at the human senses to determine what they might like. And you can just say, hey, you know, I'm practicing this new thing called sensory design. I'd love to know about what fragrances really appeal to you. What fragrances really give you a headache? Do you have any sensitivities with lighting? How do you feel about fluorescence? Oh, I hate fluorescence. Yeah, me too. Here's what I've learned. And you can just start bringing in these sensory aspects to design and see what the client kind of jumps on. Something will resonate with them and you'll be able to go from there.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for this.
Thank you.
As a neurodivergent interior designer, recently diagnosed.
We need a group, I think,
We
right?
do.
Okay.
Seriously.
Can we?
I would love that. I'm glad that you had suggested LinkedIn because I had just for now been looking on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm like, where are ADHD businesswomen who are in the creative field? I feel
can share-
so
yes, I can
lost.
share a
Thank
lot.
you.
Look, we've got
Thank you. All three of my children are neurodivergent.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure my middle is on the spectrum. And so this also is very close to my heart. And I haven't realized that I've been doing this sort of design for years.
Yeah.
But now knowing more about myself and how my business has evolved, like, thank you for all of this, like, for letting us know that there's more, that it can go deeper.
Yes.
And being that I have ADHD and an elder millennial who's not always great with technology, I have a request? Can we go back 2 slides so that
Yes.
I can get that code again?
Oh, yes, that'd be great. Yeah, so
Okay, thank you.
what's so interesting about, oh, there we go. What's so interesting about this topic is it's not some information that's just so mind-blowing or surprising. It's really just a mind shift. It's like we already kind of intuitively know this when we're working with clients. We're already sussing out what problems they have, what challenges they have. This is just a deeper level of what you're already doing. That's why I feel like it's an easy next step. And also, if you look at the data, from the boomers on this side to the children being born with all kinds of conditions now. I mean, our science is so good that I have friends with children who have been born and are living with diseases that they never would have been able to live with before. So from every side, we've got this population that's swelling, and I feel like it's an easy thing for our industry to start responding to that change. Go ahead.
So mine's not really a question, but a thank you.
Of course.
And so as somebody who's also has spectrum disorders and child on the spectrum, like on my website, I tell my personal story and I'm like
Good.
certified with all these different kind of, it's just what you do. You focus on it even if they don't need it. But just marketing that you are compassionate that way has brought so many people to my website and they pick me over, other. So it's just kind of, even putting it out there, even if you're learning it,
Because it goes back to what humans need, which is validation and to be seen.
Yeah.
None of us get a pass. We all struggle. We all suffer. We're all dealing with something. So when you can be open and vulnerable, I think that says a lot about your character, that you're going to be honest with your pricing and all the other things, the business things that you're going to be working on with your client.
I have a question about how I can bring this type of information back to my home community, to my builders, and even like my Chamber of Commerce and all the businesses that run in my market. I would love to be able to present them a way to be more inclusive and to think design forward for this community.
Okay, well, first of all, I do have a great resource list that I will share with you. Also, there is a phrase in the disability community that goes like this: nothing about us without us. So if you can find someone in your community who has a condition and they're willing to talk about what kind of change they'd like to see and why that matters, I think that carries a lot of weight, right? Because for the longest time I talked about my kids as, my kids have these conditions before I was diagnosed and didn't realize. What's so funny is we work with our kids, we get them diagnosed, and then as you're filling out hundreds of pages of paperwork, you're like, wait a minute, that's me, that's my husband. And you start to realize a lot of this is genetic. And again, back to, this is not something to be cured. This is something that we need, that's a brain type that has a lot to do with evolution. Yes, sir. You've been waiting a long time. Thank you.
No, it's quite all right. Shelly, it's hard to ask that question. It's hard enough to get clients to admit physical problems they're having, even when they're very evident to the designer.
Yes.
Talking about their cognitive state or some of the issues are, that's part one of the question. Part two is when you're talking about consulting with a PT and OT, which I think is great, aren't we now starting to have to follow HIPAA rules and things like that?
Yes. I think that is something that the PTs and OTs thankfully are kind of in charge of. They know how much they can disclose and how much they can't. I mean, really, they're there usually, especially the occupational therapist is there in the home anyway. I've seen a lot of occupational therapists go into design because they're working in the home every day and they're seeing this client cannot open the cabinet, so let's get this special tool. They're like masters and wizards of the hack on how to manage a house that's not built for someone with a disability. Only 1% to 2% of residences are accessible or ADA. And nothing really is built with our cognitive supports in mind. So what was the other part of that question?
The difficulty in asking the question.
About how to just start the conversation in general. Again, I usually kind of self-disclose a few funny stories and then see if they bite. Sometimes they will. Or just kind of start talking about some of my favorite things. I had this one client, tell them a story about a client that I have that is similar to what I think they might be dealing with and see if that opens it. Just like, I think men can do this too, but women, we're kind of manipulative that way. We know how to kind of slide in there and find out information that maybe is a little hard to broach the subject. I mean, it's really no different than when you have aging clients and you know that a freestanding tub is probably not going to be best for them over the next 4 or 5 years, and they really want that. How do you have a conversation with your client about putting up a grab bar when they're assuming it's going to look ugly or be embarrassing or look clinical? And we know we can make it fabulous, but it's a process, and it might be in phases. Once you do aesthetics maybe and they start to really trust you, then they start disclosing a little bit more of what they need on top of that. But yeah, good question. Go ahead.
I was wondering how you market that this is your niche.
Yeah, well, thank you, because I'm working on a new website and I'm sitting up at night thinking the same thing. How honest am I? Do I be funny? Am I too mommy? Do I need to be more corporate? Like, it's hard to know. I think somebody out here said just honesty about who you are and what your story is. I've kept it real minimal, like sharing my story, but not saying this is specifically what I do. But the more I have started to claim the niche, the more opportunities I've been getting. And so it feels a little scary at first to really put yourself out there, but it does work, and I think people appreciate it later. And this is my favorite part, because when I'm up here nervous to share all this, and then I get all this great feedback, I don't feel alone. I know we're all in this together. That's the best. And so you can't get that back if you don't, risk putting some of that personal information out there.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Just piggybacking on that conversation, I actually am a construction company,
Okay.
not a designer. Sorry, guys.
We need construction companies.
Don't
Are you
hate
kidding?
me. But to that point, I've actually been teasing this session for about 2 weeks. That is the only reason I came to KBIS today.
Wow, that's amazing.
And just through teasing it through our social media and whatever else we do, we automatically received a bunch of feedback from potential people. Say, oh,
Great.
really interested. I'd like to hear what this is all about.
Good.
So,
I think the market is ready. I mean, I think that's a thing that if you didn't already know, you need to know. The data is there. The market's ready. They have the money. I think they don't know. I think most people think interior designers are about if you are really wealthy and you want to show off to the neighbors or have the house where the CEO comes over for dinner, you hire a designer. Otherwise, Target is about the highest level they think interior design goes. And I want to democratize design and let people know that design is not about money. It's not as much about aesthetics, although that is important. We know now how important aesthetics are. But it's about a mind shift. We're in this big, noisy world every day, all day, and if your home does not fit you specifically and support you, and it's not your haven and your respite, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to rest. There's nowhere to recover, and you cannot move past survival into thriving until you have a place where you can rest, until you have a place where you can breathe. And then you and your family, once you've altered that environment to really fit you and only you, and it doesn't have to look a certain way, it's really the only place we have control, isn't it? Our own spaces, even if we're just renting, that doesn't matter. There's plenty that you can do. Then you can really move into that position of thrive.
Hi. I'm that invisible person, whatever, my laundry list of diagnoses at 36 years old.
Okay.
I'm 52, pivoting after being home for 15 years with my children, and one of them has a really rare gene mutation.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily have a question, but so in listening to you, it's made me reflect on what I've been through and having a child with such a rare gene mutation. It's such a lonely journey.
Yes.
And
That's okay. Emotion is good. You are in a safe place. And it is lonely.
so,
It can be very.
but I have turned my house upside down, finding solutions for my child to be able to feel comfortable, to thrive, to whatever. You know, it's like we go to the OTs and the PTs, and it's like at least multiple times a week, right? Specialists, everything. It's overwhelming and it's exhausting. And I think if I had known that there was someone back then that I could have come into my house and help me, I think that this is a really open population. I think that parents will tell you whatever the F you want to know because they freaking need the help. It is like,
Yes, it's a very desperate feeling.
so thankfully, I am super creative. I am like the MacGyver of interior design. I have been putting stuff together. Like I've been hanging stuff from ceilings, putting stuff over my kid's bed. I have more Tupperware boxes and storage solutions than you
Sensory
can shake a stick
bins?
out. Oh, it's like I'm an executive function junction, right?
yeah.
We are just like such a shit show. And so I have wanted to get into this industry, but it's been overwhelming for me, again, because of my invisible everything going on, right?
Right.
And so to have someone like you to kind of organize those thoughts, I think that it's just getting out there, and I don't even think you have to really sell yourself. I think that if you've got your webpage and you're just honest, people are going to be like, sweet, gentle Jesus, finally. Like, this is like what I've been waiting for, right? And and I think that whatever the price point is, if there's a sliding scale, because there are some people that, and that's the thing, people think they can't afford it, so they're not going to make the call. And so if this is also something where OTs and PTs or your local regional center or medical therapy unit, neurologists, whatever, you know, parents are going in there freaking out all the time. Depression and anxiety are so legit. And if you're invisible and you've got a kid with these issues, it is like bananas. And you're just trying to keep yourself together. And so, I mean, all the light bulbs that I have, the paint, the whatever, it's like so necessary. So my point is, and I know I'm rambling because, hi, right here, I'm visible. I think that this is going to explode. You just need to get the people together and get the voice out there. And like you said, get more people here at KBIS. And yes, some of the stuff out there is so damn ugly, and we do need to fix that.
Yeah.
But I've also MacGyvered a bunch of stuff to make it look okay. But thank you.
Well, that's a new
And
line
can I
you
reach
could
out
start.
to you sometime?
Absolutely,
To
I would
get me going.
I
and
will
help
be
me
sad if
with
I do
my-
not hear from some of you. Like I
Right.
said, we've been talking for at least a couple of years on Instagram, and we're finally meeting. It's one of the things I love most about social media is I really do meet people and make connections and get jobs through LinkedIn and Instagram, and I love it. I commend you for staying the course. I know how hard it is. My kids are now 25, 22, and 11, and I'm in menopause, and I am burnt out, okay? I had the stomach flu right before I was supposed to leave to come here. Then I got snowed in, and I thought, you know, maybe Vegas is just not where I'm supposed to be this week, but I'm here, and I just can't thank you enough. I think they probably need to wrap up and do the next session, but this has been really important to me, and I just can't thank you enough for sharing and being so honest. Thank you so much.